Welcome back to the Neuroscience Meets Social and Emotional Learning podcast for episode number 208. I'm Andrea Samadi, author and educator from Toronto, Canada, now in Arizona, and today's guest ties in perfectly to what we've been talking about on this podcast the past few months. Before I introduce him, I have to mention that he contacted me through LinkedIn and asked if I was looking for podcast guests, and I'm always searching for new people and have a running list, but our topic is so specific, tied to the most current brain research to help us to improve our productivity and results. So it does help me when someone who's an expert in the field reaches out to me. If you recall our last episode with Greg Link, who partnered and worked with the late Dr. Stephen Covey with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, mentioned how many of the principles that they used for success over the years took some time before they were accepted in the corporate world, let alone the K-12 school market. So when I came across someone who's an expert, or even known as the Chief Results Officer, I want to know who they are and what they've studied and how exactly they're getting these high level of results that most of us want, but they take such hard work to achieve. While researching our next guest, Blaine Oelkers, a lifetime entrepreneur, a graduate of Purdue University and Stanford University's entrepreneurship program, I learned that he's coached thousands of people with what he calls their personal implementation plan, or their PIPs, elevating his clients to higher levels of productivity and results with what he calls U 2.0, and that's exactly what I was looking for. It's rare for someone to teach these success principles without having studied with one of the greats, or at least for a period of time. So I always look to see where their love of self-improvement began. I'll be sure to ask Blaine this question, but it became clear to me that he has a sound knowledge of the most influential success books when I saw that he's taught the book that we covered to launch our year with, Think and Grow Rich. And he has some tips to help us to be more effective while studying this book, along with some lost passages. At this point in my research, I'm beyond curious how he knows this top secret information and wonder if it has to do with the fact that he shared the stage with American author and entrepreneur Jim Rohn. I suppose we'll all have to find out in the interview. Let's meet Blaine Oelkers and see if we can all kick our productivity up a notch and uncover where he learned these secrets of success from. Welcome, Blaine. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. And I've got to just say, did you notice that it took me like 3 seconds to write back to you that you are a perfect fit for our podcast?
Andrea, thank you for having me. You do now hold the record for the fastest response. And so I have a lot of people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn, I did a search like who has podcasts. And then I have a little piece of software that can kind of message people. But anyway, yes, you hold the record for getting back as quickly as possible. And I think it's kind of fun, for you and I and your listeners, because it is such a good match. We don't even live that far away from each other. So this is going to be a great time today.
Oh, awesome. I love like beating records and stuff. I'm really competitive. So if I know I beat a record, well,
excellent.
So I opened the year with a 6-part series on Think and Grow Rich after studying this book for the past 3 years with Paul Martinelli. And I have to say that when you teach something, you study it so very differently. And I didn't even finish reading it until I had to explain it to others. So I wonder, what did you uncover that 99% of people miss every time they read Think and Grow Rich? And I have some guesses, but what did you uncover?
All right. So this is the love affair that I have with this book. And people talk about moments of dawning comprehension where this thing happens and it kind of changes your life forever. And so I've been lucky that like early on, I've always been like a seeker of knowledge. How can I get better? How can I improve? But when I was in college, I was at Purdue University in the 80s. I will date myself. I saw this little ad for an audio cassette. Some people don't even know what an audio cassette tape is, but it's a little tape that plays in a little Sony Walkman. But anyway, I sent away for this tape, which was actually a pretty famous guy, Earl Nightingale, reading a condensed version of the book Think and Grow Rich. And so this changed my life. I still have the book. It's
wow.
kind of frail here, but this
Wow.
is the book I got in the 80s, and this really, kind of changed my life. And the way it changed my life was that it's called Think and Grow Rich. And it's about the fact that your thoughts, you could take your thoughts in like a systematic, structured way. You could take your thoughts and turn them into reality, like turn them into something in the physical world. Later, I came up with a saying called WYTAYBA: what you think about, you bring about. So it's kind of like the law of attraction with action. And I know we both like Bob Proctor, and he always was big about The Secret and the law of attraction, but he was big about the action part too. So WYTAYBA: what you think about, you bring about. And so I started to have some success by using that, and success in relationships. So Think and Grow Rich, it can be about finances. He does talk about that, but it can be about so much more. And he talks about harmonious relationships and your health and all these different things that you can basically think and then grow in that area. And so I was having a lot of success. And I had enough success, and I had read the book maybe by this time 15 times or so. And I had enough success that I went and I bought this book. And so this book here is one of the original 5,000 copies. And so when you open it up, there's nothing about other things being published. So I got this book.
Can you raise it up a little bit? I only saw half of it. Oh wow. Okay.
Okay. So it's a little bit different. But the big thing was that when I opened it up, the very first page says, "What do you want most?" And I said to myself, whoa, wait. I never read that. I never read that. It was like the first two pages were the instructional pages. They're not in here. And then that's what I realized, that most people, 99% of the people that I've spoken with, read the wrong version. They didn't even read the right version of the book. Now, I can talk about what those two instructional pages said to do. At the time, my business was worth about $250,000 to $300,000, and I wanted to own $1 million business that was worth $1 million. And I had a plan. Think and Grow Rich taught me how to build a plan. I built a plan, and I thought it would take me, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years to get there. But within 5 to 6 months of following those instructions on those first 2 pages, I had the $1 million business. And when the way that my business grew so dramatically, when that happened, when that idea walked in the door, I was on that, all over that idea, because of basically those 2 instructional pages, which we can unpack if you'd like to. And so that, what I also realized as I read the original version, I said, now, wait a second. There's a lot of like all capitalization. So like Napoleon Hill, he's like shouting these things. And so when I went and looked at my other version, I'm like, wait, that's not in here. And then there was passages that were different. There was mentions of different things, like, oh, he mentions Jesus and other things. Like, I'm going, wait, I never read that in the book I read. I'm a Christian. I would have remembered that, but it wasn't in that book. So it turns out that the book, when it was reprinted, wasn't reprinted the right way. And then in 1960, he made some updates to the book, made it a little more politically correct, and changed a few things. So for me, reading that original book was key. And I was getting my copies and sharing it with other people. And I wrote a little guidebook about it. And then I was unable to get the original version. So I had to go back, and luckily it was in the public domain. The very original copy was in the public domain. I was able to go get that and republish it. So I have Think and Grow Rich, the book study edition. And so happy to send you a copy of that, by the way, if you'd like. But that because I couldn't get it anyplace else. So I think there is a difference in reading that original book and those 2 instructional pages. The first one is, what do you want most? Before you start to read the book, you need to get laser focused on what you want very specifically in great detail. And that was kind of instruction number 1. And he did talk about that somewhat in the book. But then instruction number 2, the second page, was about how to read the book. and that it wasn't a novel, that it was a textbook. You should read no more than one chapter a day, but you had to read it with other people. Now, it sounds like you might have done a book study recently as well, but you had to read it with other people. And it was in the community, in the community and the unity with other people that the greatest progress towards I call it your bring about statement, the thing you're trying to bring about, would happen. And that's what happened, for me, is in discussing what I was trying to accomplish with other people. That's when the ideas came. And it was actually through a merger that I was able to grow my company, really rapidly. So anyway, that's kind of the story. Now I've read it. I'm getting close to maybe 70 times reading the book. And so it's one of my favorite books, and it has a strange power or frequency or vibration, that it affects me, physically. When I read it, I just feel better. And I'm sure neurologically some brain chemicals are very excited when I pick up the book and read it.
Well, this just blows me away, Blaine, because when I was doing the book study this January, I was using the second version you held up, and I actually never got past subconscious mind, because with Bob, we studied that so deeply. Whenever I got to that chapter, I just was like, I know this, and never went further. I didn't know about the chapter on the brain. And then what shocked me the most was the version that I had the new chapters that weren't in the original one, that I had to email one of my friends that taught Think and Grow Rich, and he said that came from a book that his wife wouldn't let him release on outwitting the devil or something.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah. That's another version of, that was another manuscript that was hidden for a lot of years. And Napoleon Hill was afraid to release it. His wife didn't want him to release it, so he never did. But later it did come out, and so that's kind of a different work, but yes.
Right. So there's just so much I had no idea. I thought, what is this lost passage? And when you explained that how you read it, because I always wondered, what is the secret that Hill says will stand out to you? And every chapter mentions it, right? And we would ask Bob, like, what's the secret in Think and Grow Rich? Just tell us so we can hurry up and move on with our lives and get all the things we want. And he would say, I'm not telling you, or you'll not read the book, and then you'll stop looking for it. So I almost had a feeling that the secret was how we read the book. You can't just flip through it, but I don't know. What do you think is the secret?
Well, all right. So I have a little master class, and the very first thing I do is tell you what the secret is. But anyway, the secret is whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Now many people have heard Napoleon Hill say that, but he also, then the next sentence is, as long as it doesn't violate the laws of God, nature, or man. So he had a little kind of phrase on the end of it. But if I were to, summarize the book in 3 words, it's conceive, believe, achieve. And so when I'm talking with my kids or people, and they say, well, what is the most important thing you want people to know? And I want people, one of the top 4 things is to know the power of their mind. And that is true, that if you can conceive something and then believe it, and the book shows you how to build your faith and how to kind of build your belief in it, then you can achieve it. But then, like Bob says, there's that action component, right? What you think about, you bring about. So you have to begin the action. Now, you don't have to know all the answers, but you need to have an initial plan, an initial conceiving of what you want, and then believing an initial plan, and then take action on that plan. And then as you go, things will be revealed to you. And that's kind of a little bit of what the book would like you to do, is to kind of take this bring about statement and bring it to each chapter. And it does kind of, the skill set kind of builds upon itself as you move forward. And I like to say, start with small things, and then build up from there. And you could have some kind of big, like chief aim in life, something like that. But also, these WYTAYBA muscles, what you think about, you bring out, work them a little bit, like the gym, start small, right? So you might say, oh, I'm thirsty, right? Okay, so you have a thought you're thirsty. Well, then you take a drink of water, right? So I just did that. That's the Think and Grow Rich principle right there. That's the WYTAYBA. So then you might say a new movie comes out. You'd like to go see that. Okay, you conceive you want to do it. You believe you can, and now you put a little plan. Who do I want to see the movie with? When do I want to go? Put it on my calendar. And there again, you made that thought turn into a reality. Well, then you start to do it with kind of bigger and bigger things, and bigger goals for your health, for your life, maybe for your business. And you'll find that you can do that, and that's the secret though for him was the power of the mind. He called it the master key to riches, was this idea, this concept that the most powerful thing you have is the mind, and whatever you can conceive and believe, you can achieve.
Oh, I love it. And I love how you created your acronym of WYTAYBA. Because when I was emailing you first, I'm writing down, I'm like, what's his email address? It's Blaine at what? What is this? And
Right.
then when I got to know your work and what you think about, you bring about WYTAYBA, it just flows. And then now I saw your email on my desk. I'm like, well, that makes complete sense now why your email is blaine@wytayba.com. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's a funny word, and it sounds like a circus tiger name or something, WYTAYBA, but it's unique. Yeah, and so that's kind of what I've been drawn to. Help people. I like to say I like to help people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves, and a lot of that is thought based, right? What you think about, you bring about, good or bad, or if you neglect it, then you're kind of subjected to whatever thoughts other people put in your mind, or that you're just kind of around. So that's probably one of the biggest things you can do to turn your life around is to start to take control of your thoughts.
Yeah. And I love how the first or these lost passages were all about building that crystal clear vision of what you want. That when I was first teaching that first beginning chapter, that was very obvious that you have to be crystal clear. What have you found to be the most important for helping others to remember how to do this? Because you've got to be really clear about what it is that you want, right? Not just a mere hope or a wish.
Yeah, and there's a couple components to that. So he says, like, what do you want most? So there's this idea of like, what do you want most? Like, there's a priority, right? And a lot of times people have, everybody has to some degree conflicting priorities, right? So I want to build this big business, but I also want a deep relationship with someone, or I want a family, and you can have these conflicting priorities. And so Napoleon Hill is asking you for right now, to come up with, what do you want most? What do you have this kind of the white heat of burning desire for? And then whatever that thing is, get really, really clear so that your mind and probably the universe and other people could help you, right? If you get really clear and very specific about what that thing is, then not only can your mind help you, but then other people can start to help you too. And that gets into trying to, use the community or the mastermind principle to make it happen. So how do you get crystal clear about what you want? So clarity is really king here. And so when you think about it, sometimes you just have to try it on, right? So you say, oh, this is what I want most. Okay, great. And then I'll say, well, let's get up 30 minutes early tomorrow and work on that for 30 minutes. And then if you don't get up for 30, if you're not that inspired to get up 30 minutes earlier, then it's probably not the right thing. Like, you don't have the desire, right? The ambition, the desire for it. And if you don't, that's hard to fix. So you might have to find something else, or you have to try to build that desire if you think it's the thing that you really want. So testing it out, putting it on, testing it out, and see. There are exercises you could do, different exercises you can do to try to figure some of that out, right? Some people will use, I like a birthday. Some people will ask you to think about your eulogy, which seems a little dark to me. So I say birthday. I used to say your 100th birthday. Now I say your 120th birthday, because now with all the advances in science, so let's say you're 120, you still got the lean muscle mass, you're looking good, you have all your faculties, and you're at this 120th birthday party for you, and people are getting up. And what are they saying? What have you done? How have you impacted their lives? What kind of business did you build? Or, what were your, different works that you did? And how did you affect family, friends, community, the world, right? And so you kind of experience that. And a lot of times that helps people to say, hey, this is what's important, and this is where I feel, I can contribute. Another exercise, if you own a business, is to say, let's say 5 years from now, or some period of time, the Wall Street Journal is going to write an article about you. What would the headline of that article be? right? And then if you want, you could bullet point the story. Some people actually even write the story. So beginning to kind of visualize, that thing out in the future. Another exercise, if you want, like to remove, if you want to really find out, like if there were no restrictions, a lot of times people say, hey, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? You can do what I call the Powerball test. Have you heard of the Powerball lottery? Yeah, so it's a big one, right? So let's say it's a $500 million lottery and you win it and you're the only winner. So you got to pay taxes, right? But then you are going to celebrate crazy. Like there's no tomorrow. You're going to travel the world, buy the castles you want to buy. You're going to do all that stuff. And you do that for a year and you celebrate and you set up all family and friends and trust funds, all that stuff. You get it all taken care of. And it's a year later. Now it's a year later and you still got a couple $100 million in the bank. And you wake up 1 year later. And what are you going to do? And when I do this exercise, in large groups, more than 90% of the people end up saying, well, Blaine, I would help people blank. Now, the blank is different for everybody, but they would say, I would help people blank. And getting into that space of what would you do if you had all those resources and you already did all the things you wanted to accomplish, in life, what would you do? And in the cool thing about it is that in the end, people, based on their life experiences, they would say, I would help people something. And that's what they would do. And so you can start taking that and putting some of that helping in your life right away. You'll start to feel good about that. But then you can incorporate that into your bring about statement and you'll find a power in that. So my wife and I are always saying, hey, does that pass the Powerball test? Like for me with Self-Fluence, if I win the Powerball this weekend, I would still come and do this podcast because I want to help people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves. And I would do that. Like, that's why I think I'm here on the planet. So when you find that stuff, you can find a lot of drive and a lot of, energy to move in that direction. So there's a couple of exercises there, but yes, getting clear, writing it out. I'm a big fan of mind dumping, where you kind of, push away the world, get some alone time, and really get stuff out of your head onto paper is very helpful.
Wow. Well, I can see why you're called the Chief Results Officer, Blaine, because you gave us so many different ways and exercises to get clear on our vision. Like I was thinking of all these ideas and ways that I could firm up my vision, just, double checking. Would I still do what I'm doing if I won the Powerball? I've never played any sort of lottery or bought any lottery ticket, but if I did and won, would I still do this? So
Right.
lots of really good ideas there. Now, when I watched your TED Talk, that's when, for me, it just sealed everything that you're talking about, all these principles and practices. You showed where the neuroscience comes in. So how has neuroscience proven that what we think about, we bring about?
Yeah, a great question. And so many people in the TEDx talk that I did, many people have heard about this reticular activating system, or the RAS. And basically, neuroscience is proving, and now we can measure. We can measure the movement of thoughts and things. The way that they can scan the brain now is remarkable. And so they've identified a small piece of the brain in the back of the head that is kind of like the executive secretary and decides, what information should I pass over to the conscious mind? And so, for example, there's so many things going on in our bodies and around us right now. All kinds of sounds, there's some, you're not thinking about every heartbeat or every breath you're taking, and all these different things are happening. And we would go insane if all that noise was coming through, everything your eyes seeing, everything you're hearing, and everything you're feeling, and all that stuff. So what happens is there's a decision box there, a piece of the brain that decides what goes into the conscious mind. And so this is something that, Napoleon Hill talked about, programming that subconscious mind using autosuggestion and getting the brain to start to work for you. But neuroscience has shown that there is that piece of the brain that decides what gets through. And a lot of it is based on your current thoughts. There's a great saying, neurons that fire together wire together. And so your brain is building, networks of information, but in deciding, that RAS kind of decides what does it let get through? And I give an example, which most people can relate to is, if you buy a new car, my son got a new car, it was a maroon Acura, TL or something like that. But when he said that, for the next couple of weeks, I saw that car all over Phoenix. Now, the cars were always there. It wasn't like someone put all those cars there all of a sudden for me to see, but it was because now my RAS was saying, this is the information that's top of mind. This is what you've asked to see. Now you're going to see it all over the place. And so it's the same thing that you can decide what it is that you're looking for, and then your brain is trying to help you get there. Right. So the neuroscience is proving that the brain is there to help you get there. And going back to the story of my business, what had happened was I was in a room and somebody talked about having to sell their business. And my RAS picked up on that. And I was like, whoa, sell business. I want to grow my business and grow through merger. When I was doing the mastermind with other people, they were saying, well, that's the fastest way you could grow. Instead of just kind of building yourself, merge with another company. And so when I heard that someone wanted to sell, I just locked in on that. My RAS woke up, locked me in on that. I went over. It took a couple of months, but we made that happen, and that created that $1 million business for me. The other interesting thing is that neuroscience, the study of the brain, is getting more and more defined and detailed. And I think the biggest thing in my lifetime that's changed from when I was younger, there was this thought that the brain was fixed. The amount of brain cells was fixed. The size of your brain after a certain age was fixed. And you had kind of ended up with this fixed mindset. Well, that's shifted now, and neuroscience has proven that you can grow your mind, that it's more plastic, that's flexible, and you can not only create new pathways for things, but you can also grow the size of your brain. I love a study. My wife and I went to London. We got to go in one of these black London cabs. They're very famous, the London cabbies, but they're famous because they're really good cab drivers, and they're really good because they have to pass this thing called the knowledge test. And so London is not laid out like Phoenix in a nice grid form. It's like crazy to know how to get from point A to point B. And only 1 out of 5 people that take the test, only 1 out of 5 attempts at the test are successful. So it's a really, really hard test, but they're really, really good. So what one university, neuroscience university in England did is they studied the detailed brain scans of these cab drivers and noticed that the hippocampus, or the part of the brain that's responsible for maps and spatial stuff and memory and all that, was dramatically larger than the rest of the population. And it was a landmark study because it kind of proved that you could grow your brain, right? That through use, you could grow your brain. And what I realized in like practicality was that my neurons are firing all the time. And again, neurons that fire together, wire together. And so if I'm surrounding myself with good, positive inputs, I tend to go in that direction, where the opposite is also true. If I'm around negative things or negative inputs, or even have negative self-talk, I call it head trash, I've got to take out the head trash every day. But if I'm around that, then that grows, right? So again, what you think about, you bring about, but it's important to try to control that, because physically stuff is happening. You think things, and that's creating chemical reactions in the brain, which is now being studied and kind of, the truth about it all is starting to come out. And I think we're going to see a lot more powerful things come about because of that research. So I'm excited about where we are, but also where we're going.
Oh, definitely. So if we could tie this now as well to our beliefs, and how beliefs and habits are formed, because we've covered that topic a lot on the podcast. So what about your experience of working with corporations or leaders over the past few decades? How have things changed with this understanding of bringing neuroscience into, forming beliefs and habits and improving productivity and results in the workplace?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that in the corporate world, they're realizing this concept of kind of the fixed mindset or the growth mindset. And now they're actually trying to hire people. They're trying to do interview questions and things to figure out who has the growth mindset, who believes in possibilities, growth, moving forward, and then who has a more of the fixed mindset. It can't change, and I'm stuck where I'm at. Neuroscience is showing that that's not the case. And even if you have kind of the fixed mindset, that you can move yourself into the growth mindset. But what's happening is now people are realizing, the ability to take control, right? That's what I talk about is this concept of self-fluence, the power you already have, to control yourself or to influence yourself. And so in the area of, we could talk about habits or we could talk about productivity, but in both, what I'm finding as chief results officer, it's like a title. I always liked helping people get results. Right. And people started calling me chief results officer. So there's a number of mastermind groups where I run the results side. Like my job is to make sure people get results every single week. So I put them in small groups. And we have this thing called a personal implementation plan. So each week you have you're celebrating your wins, but you're also figuring out, again, kind of like Think and Grow Rich, getting crystal clear, like what's the top item or a few items for me to get done in the next week. And then I'm going to reward myself if I get them done. And then I'm going to have some kind of a leverage or maybe a penalty if I don't get them done. And so what's happening is a lot of people are in corporations too, are looking at, hey, how do we have the daily huddle to make sure that we're programming our neurology, correctly. So they have the daily huddles. They also have weekly meetings now, again, to focus in on what is going right and where they want to go. Now you have to stop and debrief problems and come up with solutions, and things are going to break and bad things are going to happen, but it's your reaction to those things that matter. So I see a lot of structures being put in place in corporations, to kind of make sure that you are moving forward and make sure that things are measured, and make sure that you're kind of taking advantage of this neuroscience, to build better people, which is going to end up building better companies. I've also found that people inherently have the power. They're just not using the power. And so that's the biggest thing for self-fluence is that, like, if, I say people are really good at time management, and I have something called the 30-minute hour where you get an hour's worth of stuff done in 30 minutes and people already know how to do it. And then I also have something on habits, because we are all creatures of habits, something called the 21-second habit, which is how to create a new habit in 21 seconds, not 21 days. So if they told you it takes 21 days, they lied to you. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, but both of those things, and we can unpack those if you'd like, that both of those, you already know how to do it. Now it's just kind of remembering and then mastering it.
So I saw the 21 habits in 21 seconds, and I was really intrigued by that, because a lot of us know, like, there's things that we know we're supposed to do, but it takes a long time to form the habits for some people. Like, I know some people that have been trying to eat healthy since the whole time I've known them, like 20 years. Like, what are you working on? Well, I'm working on eating healthy. And I heard you on a podcast, you were interviewing this guy, and he was talking about how he wanted to eat a piece of chocolate, but he was going to eat something healthy first and then put the chocolate second. And I was thinking, well, if you want to eat healthy, there's got to be no chocolate. Like, the chocolate's got to go for like a certain period of time. So I was just thinking, like, for people that are stuck in certain habit loops and trying to work on something and they're never getting it, or maybe they get it for a certain amount of time, how would you break someone's, like, healthy eating in 21 seconds? What would you have them do?
Okay, so there's two kind of separate things here. So one is new habit creation. So that's something you can do in 21 seconds, not 21 days. And then there's bad habit elimination. So bad habit elimination and creating new habits are a little bit separate. And so if you're looking at, like, how do I break a bad habit, then that bad habit elimination, one, there's a couple of basics there. The first one is, like, getting really clear, and this goes back to Think and Grow Rich again, getting really clear, like, why do you want to break that habit, right? So let's say you're eating bad food, unhealthy food. Like, why do you not want to eat that? Why do you want to eat healthy food? Why do you want to eat healthy? So you got to dig in, and you might say, well, because I want to be there for my grandkids or my kids, or there's something, I want to live a healthy life. You have to get to that why, and then you have to emotionalize. And thing where Rich talks about this, the power is in the emotions behind that. I remember my wife's dad, my father-in-law. I watched him for years try to quit smoking. Couldn't do it. Maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days, back to smoking. And then one day he quit cold turkey, never smoked again, and lived, probably 15, 20 years without smoking. And so what happened was his why was big enough. And my wife, Beth, said, Dad, if you're smoking, you can't be around Bo, who's our son. You can't be around the grandkids. And that was enough. That was it. That why was big enough. and that was it. He never smoked again. So the why is key to start with. But then the next part is that you need to have a substitute habit. You need to fill the void with something else, right? So if you were going to stop eating unhealthy food, you'd have to pick some healthy food, whether it's fruits, nuts, something that's easy and you can have very low resistance, but you need a substitute habit, in there. And then the third part is to remove any kind of like cues or triggers for that habit loop, right? And so typically you might try to think about them, but you're going to discover them the moment you kind of break your chain of not doing that habit and you go back to the old habit. So the minute that you have the chocolate bar, something cued the chocolate bar, right? And so it could be proximity, the chocolate bar's in the house, it could be stress, it could be, but then if it's stress, like why did you, what did you need? And what substitute habit could you put in there? Could you go exercise instead or something like that? So those are the big three in bad habit elimination. And then there are other things because proximity, out of sight, out of mind, that is so true, right? So when I wanted to give up bad foods like potato chips and stuff like that, soda, we just removed it from the home. So now maybe I have a potato chip around a party or something, but they're not around the house. So 90% of the time I'm not eating it. So out of sight, out of mind. So there's techniques you can use to begin to kind of distance yourself from that. Other tips, association with other people who are trying to remove that habit, then your compliance goes way up. So if I'm in a group, Facebook group, a text thread, any kind of group with a bunch of people that want to eat healthy, that's going to rub off on me. That's going to be good. So there are these other, things like that you can do. The other big thing is if you can find ways to surf the urge, like you're going to have an urge for the chocolate bar, but it's going to be like a wave. It's going to crest and it's going to be, I really want, but if you can hold out just a little bit, some little trick to kind of get past that, then you gain more control as the wave comes down. So for me, like I like intermittent fasting to maintain my figure. And so there's some times where like at 10 a.m., so I'm trying to fast. Maybe I'm only eating from like noon to 7 every day, right? But around 10, I might get real hungry. Well, if I go brush my teeth with this real minty toothpaste, then I take the Listerine and swish it all around, I don't feel like eating after that. So that's how I surf that wave. So there's a number of techniques there, but the basic is deep emotional why, then come up with a substitute, remove the cues and triggers. Those are probably the basic three. And then those other things can help as well. Does that make sense?
Oh, it really does. And it all builds resilience, right? That's what I'm thinking. Every time you're able to surf the urge and go past it, you're building stronger neural pathways, stronger resilience, mental toughness. Like it's really good for you.
Yeah. And the self-confidence that comes from that. And there's something about the 3 to 4 day mark that you don't want to break the chain. There's a famous thing about don't break the chain, and people get a calendar and put a big X each day that they, either don't do the bad habit or do the good habit, but you don't want to break that chain. And so I love consistency now. And I have developed some of these, very long chains that I don't want to break. One of them was, I like the Peloton bike. Actually, I bought it for my wife, but I've ridden it every day since it came. Even I rode it I had COVID, and I wrote it every day, like I didn't miss a day, even when I had COVID. Now I had been vaccinated, and it was a mild case, but still, I got on that bike, and I haven't missed it. Even when I travel, sometimes it's at the hotel, or there's a way to do it on a stationary bike. But anyway, creating that, yes, it gives you that sense of power. Now, the flip side of the bad habit elimination is creating new habits, and so. Do we have time to kind of unpack that?
Oh, definitely. Because I was thinking of that even when you were talking. Is this going to include habit stacking? Like how to stack a
That's
new
it.
habit? I thought that's a natural progression of what's next.
Yeah, and that's it. So I call it habit linking, but the key is that the way you create a new habit in 21 seconds, or basically instantly, is that you link it to a habit that you're already a habit master at. So when I introduce this to people, I say, look, there's like, I'm not bad. I've been trying to eat healthy and I can't do it, or I've been trying to make a little to-do list of what the most important thing to do is, and I can't do it. And I said, well, let's first start with this premise that you're a habit master. And let me ask you a question. Do you brush your teeth? So I'll ask you, Andrea, do you brush your teeth?
I do, yes.
Okay. And then how often? Are you twice a day, or are you once a day, or how many times?
Time I eat, usually like 3 times a day at least.
3 times a day. All right. So when's the last day that you went without brushing your teeth at all?
Never, because you got to brush your teeth in the morning, right?
Right. So even like camping or whatever, you bring the portable toothbrush. Okay. You are a habit master, as most people are, in brushing your teeth. So my wife, the way that I kind of discovered this was my wife used to have, knock on wood, she doesn't have anymore, used to have migraine headaches almost daily. And she had to fill out this log to track, when they came on, what was the weather like, what foods did she have, and she would lose the log. She couldn't do it for more than a couple of days. Then she'd have another migraine. I'd ask her about the log. That I learned not to do that. But what happened was, one time we said, look, let's take the log and let's put your toothbrush and the toothpaste on top of it. Every time you brush your teeth, because she's at least twice a day, you fill out the log while you brush your teeth. And it went from couldn't do it for a couple of days, losing it, to doing it like 90 days in a row. Right, 90 days in a row. And then that helped the doctors figure out what to do and what the next steps were. And she doesn't have those headaches anymore. I had a thing where there were these two things that I wanted to do every day. One, I had a Bible app, but then I wanted to take a mind shower. Now, most people will take a physical shower every day, but I realized that my mind was getting dirty every day. And so I wanted to take, a 10-minute mind shower. Now, I use an app called Headspace, but it's a meditation that just kind of walks you through, calming and clearing out the trash in your mind. And so I start to think, okay, what do I do every day? What could I habit link? So you want to habit link to things that you're already a habit master at. And I realized that this device, this phone, right? This phone is something that I would open up every single day without fail. And so what I did is I moved all the apps off the front page, and I just put those two apps on the page. And so in the morning, I always open my phone first thing. And now when I open my phone, I have to do those two things before I'm allowed to touch any other buttons on the phone. So I habit linked it to that. And so as of this morning, I'm at like 1,468 days in a row and it's documented inside there, which is kind of cool, of doing those every single day. Now, if I'm in a big rush, maybe I only do a 3-minute mind shower instead of a 10, but I always have time, to do that. And so that was key. And the other, so this idea of the 21-second habit is linking it to something you're already a habit master at. And then if there is an urge there that you can serve, like I have this urge to want to check the news and check text messages from my kids and, check if any orders came in, just all these things that I normally get very excited about to see in the morning, but I surf the urge to get that new habit solidified. Now after so many days, the science shows after about 60 days, that new habit does take root neurologically. And now you can kind of use that to link on to something else. But if you think about it, there's things you do multiple times a day, like brushing your teeth. There's things you do once a day, like the first time you open your phone or the first cup of coffee in the morning, that you can link to. There's things that happen weekly. There's things that happen monthly. There's things that only happen once a year in your life that, again, you could link if, whatever the cadence of that new habit is, you can link, to that. Again, I say, start small, start simple, just do one, but you're going to see, that there's a tremendous power, even if you were failing before, that you link it to that habit that you're already a master at. And I like to say win early and win often. You need to be winning most of the time. And if you're losing, then neurologically, you want to make it smaller and smaller and smaller until you win. So like if somebody was eating bad food and they say, I can't do it. And then I'd say, well, how about this? How about we just look at how many hours in a row could you go without eating bad food? And say, and I'm going to start, let's start the clock at whenever you stop eating at night. So if you stopped eating at 8 p.m. and you made it till 8 a.m., you just did 12 hours, right? But then we start to push it, after that, but you want to nano-size the goal because you want to win early and you want to win often. And I think there's some magic ratios about winning and losing. I coach my kids in tennis, and I realized that in tennis, it was about 70%. So if you were winning 70% of the time, that was good. If you're winning you're winning like 90% of the time or 95% of the time, my kids weren't learning anything. They were just, just beating other opponents, and they're not learning anything. But the opposite, if they were losing more than 30% of the time, 40 or 50% of the time, then they get down on themselves and they would be like, I don't think I want to do tennis, Dad, right? So you had to keep the magic ratio there. And it's the same thing for you. You're going to figure that out, but it's, the chemicals that are released when you win, when you get something done, they make you feel good, and they're designed to keep you in action, to keep you going. And so I think that it's important to kind of win early, win often. And if you're not winning, chunk it down till you start winning and then bring it back out. And that's probably one of the biggest kind of results hacks that I've discovered in the last decade or so.
This is so very helpful, Blaine. So when you were talking about getting rid of negative thoughts and taking a brain shower, that's a nap. Do you have any other strategies for just, your like win early, win often? What if you're not winning? How do you clear your head on a day-to-day basis without using an app? Like what?
Yeah. I think that, it's tough. Like people are, can struggle with, negativity. I call it head trash, and the head trash, and what you're saying to yourself and how you say it to yourself and your confidence, and maybe you feeling, imposter syndrome and all these different things mentally, it's tough. And I've gone through periods, where I really had to change the inputs. And that's where I would ask people to start, is that you have to change the things that are inputting into your brain, in as many ways as possible. Now, for me, when the head trash comes on, or early on, I would need I say the solution to pollution is dilution, right? So the solution to pollution is dilution. So if I had, if I had an hour of pity and bad self-talk and doubt and all that stuff, I would need, 5 or 10 hours of positive stuff. I'd have to pour in the positive to dilute down that negative, right? And so how do you pour in the positive? One way is listen to podcasts like this. This is a very high frequency, things you could do to improve podcasts. Also listening to mentors, listening to Bob Proctor's, Napoleon Hill's, Jim Rohn is my number one mentor. Have you ever heard of Jim Rohn?
Of course. When I was researching you, for sure, that's where I realized when you shared the stage with Jim Rohn, I thought this is where you probably learned some of these tips about the missing passages. I imagined you sitting at a table with him and him pointing out all these missing passages.
Yeah, I learned more from Jim in like a little 5-minute span. I was able to host him at an event once, and yeah, he changed my life. He changed the philosophy, that brought a lot of results, for me. But anyway, you've got to, pour in, take control of the inputs as best you can and put in the stuff that you want. Now, also, reading books that make you, that raise your vibration, raise your attitude, listening to music, right? All these personal lifters, you need to start to make a list so that you have kind of I call it a head trash toolkit, hack your head trash toolkit. But there's music I can put on that I use music to modulate myself, meaning like if I'm all amped up and I'm nervous, I can have music that calms me down, right? If I'm doing deep focus work, I have music that can do that there. But if I'm feeling down, I need more energy, I can put on some 80s music that, takes me right back up. So you begin to learn how to influence yourself through all those things. So it can be foods that you eat, right? Or I see food as fuel. And I know if I put the wrong fuel in there, I'm in trouble. But the fuel, the people you're hanging around, right? There's that influence factor. Who are you hanging around? Now, some people you can't choose, maybe some family and maybe even some friends, you can't choose, but you can choose them, but you can choose how long you're around them, but you can also choose who you're around. And I'm not just talking physically, I'm talking about like Jim Rohn, he's passed on, but I can be with him every day through his audio programs, right? I can be with him every day by thinking, Napoleon Hill talked about invisible counselors, where you kind of picture that person in your mind. And have a conversation with them. But there are ways through audio, video, to surround yourself with that stuff that is going to feed you and make you better and make you more of the person that you want to be. So I think the big thing is taking control of those inputs. Gratitude is a big one in there as well. Your achievements, like knowing what are your greatest moments. One exercise we do in workshops is we have everybody close their eyes and think of one of the greatest moments in their life and relive it. And the whole energy of the room, the whole feeling of the room changes. And your physiology, your brain chemistry will literally change when you do that. Now, a lot of people, it could be a marriage, it could be a birth of a child, it could be some big accomplishment, winning something big or some big promotion, or a big aha moment, whatever the case may be. But reliving that and all the senses, bringing all the senses into it. So you can build this toolkit. And what happens is it's hard in the beginning. It's hard. And like I said before, it might have taken me 10 hours of positive inputs to go against the 1 hour. And now maybe I'm down to 50-50. Maybe, it's 1 hour, and I only need 1 hour of good stuff. And you could get down to where you're able to kind of change that state, more quickly. But you have to kind of control the inputs. I think that's the big thing to hacking your head trash. A couple of other things, two other big things that have worked well for me. One is to try, both of these things, shift your mind to work for you instead of against you, right? And so one is, have you ever heard of Noah St. John? Have you ever heard of his work?
No.
Okay, so Noah St. John, he wrote The Secret Code of Success, and he's famous for coming up with something called affirmations. Now, affirmations are good. Affirmations are like, I eat healthy, I eat healthy, I eat healthy. And if you say it long enough, the Raz will pick it up and it will become part of your life. But initially, when you say, I eat healthy, I eat healthy, I eat healthy, your brain says, no, you don't, no, you don't, no, you don't. And so you're stuck in a little bit of a cycle. And so what he discovered, actually in the shower, an aha moment, was that if he turned it into a question and he affirmations, he formed it into a question, that then your brain would work for you, not against you. So what he would say is that's your desire is to eat healthy. He would say that you would say the affirmation would be, why do I find it so easy to eat healthy? Why do I find it so easy to eat healthy? Because then you pause for your brain to give you some answers, and then you take action on those answers, right? So in my case, because you threw out all the junk food, because you learned about intermittent fasting, because you surround yourself with healthy people, because you decided to exercise, because you decided to learn about how, certain foods can really trash your body. You come up with those reasons and you begin to move in that direction, of those reasons. Does that make sense?
Completely does.
So,
Absolutely.
so again, now it can be, why do I find it so easy to love so-and-so if you're having trouble with that person? Why do I find it so easy to, attract the right people? Why do I find it so easy to create a successful business? And your brain starts to give you those things. The other thing that I use a lot, even on myself, to switch the brain very quickly, is this, I call it yeah, butting, yeah, but. Yeah, but. And so if I'll say, to myself, I'm going to eat this piece of chocolate, yeah, but, yeah, but here, and that kind of switches your brain to say, yeah, but here's all the reasons why you shouldn't, or yeah, but then I'm going to exercise for 30 minutes to burn off those calories, right? Whatever that thing is, whatever that bad thing that's happening, or that you're thinking about yourself, right? Like I always, I find it hard to control my eating. Yeah, but. So now your brain is trying to say, yeah, but you're learning about it. Yeah, but you're surrounding yourself with the right people. Yeah, but you subscribe to podcasts that are about healthy eating. So you kind of give yourself, you acknowledge that thought, that negative thought in yourself, but then you yeah, but it to make sure that the positive side kind of gets equal billing.
And you're framing the positive in your brain to what you think about, you bring about. That's what you're doing. You're essentially like putting a highlight around it. So
Exactly.
focused on it. It goes back to the RAS and the filter, and why Napoleon Hill wanted us to be crystal clear with our vision. It all kind of ties everything all in together, because what we think about, we bring about.
Exactly. And that, and that has served me well. It's not always easy, it's not always easy, and you're going to face difficult times, but it also, you begin to realize that, it's not what happens that determines your life future. It's what you do about what happens. And that's one of the big things Jim Rohn taught me. And I realized there's this gap here between stimulus and response, that other animals don't have, that we have. And it's in that response. That's what determines where you end up, not what happens. We all have good stuff and bad stuff and hard stuff and easy stuff and good breaks and bad breaks, but it's what you do about those things that makes all the difference. And that's comforting to know that you have a choice and that you can direct that choice. Now, if that life can slow you down, definitely life can hit you and hit you hard. And we all can think about that time where life has hit us really hard. But it's in that moment too that usually something good, if you look for it, something good will come out of it, or you're going to learn something, or some good is going to come out of it. There's the silver lining if you're willing to look for it. It's there, and you can grow from it no matter how bad it is.
It's always there, definitely. Well, is there anything that you think I've missed? I think we've got like this incredible thread of information that you kind of led us from, Napoleon Hill to what we think about, we bring about, to our RAS, to habits, to cleaning our mind. I feel like you've really tied it all in, but is there something that we haven't talked about?
No, I don't think so for this episode. We have a lot of stuff that we packed in there. And the only thing I would say is to make sure, actionize this somehow, actionize it. Maybe listen to the podcast again, but pick something to actionize. Don't make it too big. Make sure you can win at it. Maybe you want to add a mind shower. Maybe you want a new habit. Maybe you want to, start to read Think and Grow Rich again. But take some action, actionize it in some way, and start down that path to a better you. And I think that there's enough suggestions here for everybody, for that. And I want to thank you for, having me on, and for kind of being a light of, neuroscience meets practicality. And I think this format that you've chosen to create interviews like this and then put them on the internet, that's really cool. And that I think you're affecting even lives not yet born. There's somebody who's not even born yet right now when we're recording this that will be able to experience this. So you're touching not only lives here, but you're touching lives out in the future. And I applaud you for that, and hope you'll keep doing that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Blaine. I learned so much in such a short period of time. So, for people who want to learn more about you, is the best place BlaineTEDx.com, where your TEDx is?
Yeah, that's the simplest thing. Blaine, BLAINE, TEDx, TEDx.com. And you can opt in there. You'll get my TEDx talk that I talked about, WYTAYBA. You'll get a transcript of it, and then we'll be connected. So if you had questions for me or you're interested in anything else, you'll get to meet me and learn about me through there. And I do want to serve you, and I'm hopeful that I can help you get some results and be part of your story someday.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for the hard work you're doing in this field. You are definitely getting results. And I'm going to go back and listen to this. When I edit, I get a chance to listen on a deeper level and ponder, like my mentor, Greg Link, told me to do. But I get a different opportunity. So I know there's a lot that you mentioned today that I'm going to take action on. So I want to thank you so much for today and all that you're doing for the world.
Oh, thank you. It was an honor to be here. And I like to say the bad news is time flies. The good news, you're the pilot. So pilot a good week here coming up.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.